Chapter 4, Punishment. It was much later in the afternoon, while Nadine was cleaning out the dog kennels, that the sound of a truck and the eruption of the dogs barking told her the others had returned. Ted was furious. He slammed the door of the cab and barked orders to Daniel. Nadine's brother's eyes were red and puffy, and he scowled when his stepfather spoke. But, as always, as they all did, he did as he was told. "Nadine," Ted roared. "Nadine, you get your ass over here right now." Nadine put down the scrubbing brush and began to walk up to the sheds. She passed Daniel on the way. "What now?" she whispered fiercely to her brother. "A gate," he replied. "You left a gate open." Nadine stopped and looked at her brother, her mouth open with surprise. Not surprise about the gate, but surprise because Daniel's bush shirt was soaked with blood, and his face and hands were smeared with dirty red patches. "Are you hurt?" she asked, concerned. Daniel shook his head. "It's not mine," he muttered as he headed down to the house. Ted roared again. "Now, girl, or you'll get the whip." Nadine, her stomach now churning and her mouth dry, continued her way to the shed. "Coming," she croaked. "I'm coming, Uncle Ted." And now there were tears in her eyes too. She just hoped it would be over with quickly. It was worse than a hiding, much worse. Nadine had pleaded and cried until she was hoarse. Her mother was no help. As always, she agreed with Ted's decision, and that was the end of it. Because she'd left the gate open, the cattle had got into the bush, and now it was going to be a hell of a job getting them out again. At least a day's work. And who knew what would happen to them when they're in there, especially those in calf. They could get stuck in a bog, they could, or break their legs somewhere, and we'd never find them. Cost $1,000 a head. All this Ted had yelled at her while she stood silent in front of him, trying not to hear him, trying to think of something else. This time she'd gone too far. She knew the rules, and she had broken the rules. And the fairest punishment, because she was out with Hawkeye, was to take the dog and give it away. This part Nadine had heard clearly. "Eh?" she had croaked. "Hawkeye? What do you mean?" "I mean a hiding won't teach you a lesson. That dog's more trouble than it's worth." Ted's eyes had narrowed. "He's going tomorrow." With that, he had pulled a strip of baling twine from the tractor and stormed over to the kennels. Nadine had trotted behind him, trying to reason with her stepfather. "I'm sorry, Uncle Ted. It wasn't Hawkeye's fault. It was mine. Please don't send him away." Her tears had dropped as she walked. "He's a good dog, please," she had begged. But he hadn't listened. Instead, he had pulled Hawkeye roughly out of his run and pulled him back to the tractor. Without a word, he tied the dog to the trailer and turned toward the house. Sobbing, Nadine had bent down to hug her dog. "Leave him." Slowly Nadine had straightened, turned her head, and, with tears streaming, joined her stepfather as he walked back to the house. Later, as she lay in bed, Nadine tried to figure out a way to get Hawkeye and take him somewhere safe. If she got up really early, she could run away with him, go back to the city, perhaps stay with one of her old friends. They'd be horrified when she told them what had happened. They'd tell her she could live with them for as long as she wanted. In fact, they'd love to adopt her because she was such a wonderful person. And then they would, and she and Hawkeye would never have to see this stinking, miserable hole of a place again. But, she thought as she wiped the angry tears from her eyes, then she wouldn't see the boys, and she wouldn't see her mother. Nadine tried to think through another plan, but she was exhausted. Soon she was asleep, dreaming about Ted dying in an accident and Marion getting lots of money from insurance, and then they could live wherever they wanted. It was a good dream, but too soon it was morning. Both Daniel and Martin came into her room while she was still in bed. "He's gone," Daniel said. Nadine sat up quickly. She knew straight away who they meant. "But I haven't said goodbye to him," she cried. "He wouldn't have let you anyway," Martin told her. "Said last night that the dog was too soft because of all your coddling him." "I'll go get him back," Nadine said defiantly, her chin rising a little. Did he tell you where he's going?" Martin and Daniel gave each that look Nadine had seen a lot of lately. "What?" she asked them. "What's going on?" Daniel looked down at his feet. He told Marion he was going to take him to a friend of his, a pig hunter. Nadine watched her brothers closely. "Which pig hunter?" Daniel threw Martin a look again. "Dunno, some guy up in the hills." But Nadine didn't believe him, didn't believe either of them. "Okay," she said, getting businesslike, though her heart and stomach hurt with sadness. "You two sit," she told her brothers. They sat on either side of her bed. "Now," she began, "you're going to tell me what's going on." "Nadine, what?" Martin began. "Don't try that on me, Martin Bamford. None of this. You're the youngest crap. You know where he's taken Hawkeye, and you're going to tell me." Daniel began. "But—" "And as for you," Nadine said, rounding on her brother, "why were you covered in blood yesterday?" Suddenly Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Nadine's bossiness evaporated. "Daniel, what is it?" Martin got up and closed the bedroom door. "Okay, we'll tell you, but you're not going to like," he said. "And you can't tell anyone, ever, or living here will get even worse." He stared hard at his sister. "Promise you won't tell." "Promise." "I promise," Nadine said quietly. "I promise."